mindful of asking the intelligent questions which are relevant, and also hope that the answer will be crisp enough that we can gain from the expertise of the panel sitting here. So, panel definitely doesn't need any introduction. Mr. Sanjeev Asthana, the world knows him. He is the CEO of Patanjali Foods. Absolutely experienced, great experience in commodities. I mean, the whole 1 hour will pass if I keep talking about him. So I will be. And then we have Kapil Lema, who is the deputy CEO of Dalmia Bharat Sugar. Sumit, everybody knows, star in corn, grains, and he runs he worked for the largest brokerage house in the world. Can I say that? Yeah. Then we have Aromal, who is handling the grain business in COFCO. We have Nikhil Yagnik from Rocket. Rocket is also the largest, right, in the world starch? Yeah. So this is the quality of a panel we have today, and I am the moderator, the privileged one to ask questions and not answers. So I'll be quick, and I'm just waiting for Nagaraj to join. Chair has been removed. So when you are late in the class, you are asked to stand for a few minutes. So let me start with Mr. Yagnik first, because Rocket has put up a lot of assets in India on corn starch, and obviously they would have done a lot of studies on the corn production in India. What is going to be the trend? Because when you invest such a large sum of money in a business, obviously you do a lot of research work. And I will request Yagnik to highlight about the supply and demand of corn and the growing trends. And also, the next question will be that how does the grain ethanol affect your business?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, and thanks to be on this panel with all of you to share my thoughts. So I'll start with some of the fundamentals that we have already spoke about a lot during this session. First is with respect to supply. So of course we've seen Transcarp also presenting a higher production this year, and of course there's a lot of demand also coming in from ethanol. So, I'll start with ethanol because I think that's going to be a critical one, and it's sort of affecting starch business in multiple ways. So, and I think few thoughts I'll try to put up on the table so that, this discussion can go more meaningful discussion. So first is, if you look at the ethanol consumption of maize, in the first half of the year, of course we have a lot of other feedstock as well, which is in the form of sugarcane and rice, which got available recently. But I believe going forward for balance of the year, specifically starting now, we would have more demand of maize coming in from the ethanol industry compared to what we have seen so far. So I think there's going to be a little bit of skewedness in terms of the overall demand of maize coming in from ethanol. So I think that's the first point that we need to consider while we're talking about S&D for maize for balance of the year. Then again, in terms of on the pricing front, there are certain uncertainties, and we've touched upon that topic even yesterday in terms of uncertainties that is coming in from demand from ethanol. So first uncertainty is in terms of how much actual consumption of maize which could possibly go in ethanol. So we've seen a number of 12 million here. Now, off and on, we have been getting a lot of different news around availability of rice is more. There can be more availability of rice which could be made available for ethanol. So that is going to be creating a lot of uncertainty. So right now, if we take that number of 10 million right now, but over a period of time we may end up seeing another 2.5 million rice which would come out. And whether that SND or whether that supply has been factored into the price that we are looking at right now in the market. So that's something to be seen. I mean, I don't know whether the market has already taken an account of that additional supply of rice when it comes to the kind of prices we were talking about 2150, 2200 in Gulabad. So that is second. Third is again little bit of a sluggish demand coming in from the other sectors, especially starch. We've seen relatively lower demand coming in from starch industry. Even the numbers that we just now saw, -2%. I don't know if it's 2%, it could be 5%. Given the starch prices in the global market, there is a bit of a challenge and significant supply which is coming in from China for starch. So that is going to be impacting the export of starch going out of India. So what does that mean? Overall demand from starch industry could be a little sluggish and may not follow the YOY increase or the increased trajectory that we have been seeing of around 5 to 6% over the last 2 years. So I mean, with these thoughts, I think there is just one last point, and that's in terms of the current stock of tariff that we see in the market right now. So there has been a lot of buying that happened during Kharif period, and we are sitting with a lot of stock. So what that means, two things. One, there may not be immediate sudden demand for maize that would be coming in because there is enough stock available in the market. Second, a lot of working capital is also there. I mean, there's a lot of working capital which is already blocked into those stocks. Now I can talk more from the starch industry. There's a lot of working capital that is there both in raw material as well as in the finished goods. So this is another important factor that we need to see. So broadly, if you see right now in terms of uncertainties, first point is how much maize diversion to ethanol would actually happen by end of the year. That is one. Second, how the working capital availability at this point is going to impact the rush towards buying maize right from the beginning of the season. So with that, I will sort of put my thoughts and I'll let everybody else sort of comment on that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the very interesting observation. This is something which I always feared, and I have a follow-up question on that. That, today the starch exports are still happening in terms of corn starch exports. And the first business which will be affected because of that, if the Indian domestic corn prices moves up, will be that business. Are you seeing that happen?
So at this point, starch competitiveness in the global market is definitely going down, I think that I can say. And there are multiple factors to this. Of course, first is the price of corn itself. I think if the feed, the input cost is higher, of course it makes the competitiveness in the global market low. And second, also there is a surge of export coming in from China. So that affects the demand and supply. And if you look at it, see, traditionally export from India is predominantly in the Asian market, Southeast Asia and Far East, and where the competition is majorly China. So both in terms of the raw material cost, and second in terms of a higher availability, a lot of capacity in China, and a recent decision of exporting starch from China has significantly affected the competitivity of starch in the global market.
Thank you. So next question to my colleague from COFCO, and would you give some insight on the global supply and demand of corn and how are the trends?
Right. See, let me talk the global supply demand of corn mainly from the perspective that impact the Indian markets, right? We are sitting in India, so let me talk from that point of view. This year, where the corn base normally comes to India, that is primarily from either Ukraine or from Myanmar. Ukraine, we have a short crop. Crop can be lower by anywhere between 7 to 10 million tons, and that has really affected the availability of non-GMO corn from the Black Sea, right? We are already seeing that last year, at the same point of time, India was importing corn at closer to $235. And today, it has become $240 at the FOB side itself, which makes the CNF prices at close to 270, 75. In addition to the domestic lower prices and since the Ukrainian corn is already $40 higher, I mean the viability of the corn coming in under the advanced license route is basically gone from the toss. That's not right. On the other side, the other source of India importing corn is Myanmar. Myanmar also has got a short crop this year, and we are already seeing the prices remaining pretty firm in the Myanmar market, and the Myanmar corn basically connecting to the Southeast Asian markets, the inelastic demand which basically connects to that place. Okay, at this point of time, we think that because of the lower prices and all those things, probably there is enough supply of corn within the country, but I tend to disagree. I still believe that there is a balance sheet problem as far as corn in India is concerned. I mean, even if you look at the NAFTA's presentation, I mean, we are talking about the corn carryout reducing from 1.9 million metric ton to 0.55 million metric ton to 0.55 million metric ton approximately this year. And one of the biggest assumptions that Nagarji is making is that production is going to increase by 7.5 million tons. I would put a question mark on that number. I may not agree to that completely. I think with Kharif crop up by 3.5 and Rabi crop also going up by that absolute amount, and we should understand that Rabi crop is something like 30% of the overall India crop. Probably 7.5 million tons excess crop which is there, probably could be a question mark, and if that is a question mark, then the 0.5 can become a -1, -2 type of a balance sheet, which at the end of the day, okay, after all the euphoria of the rice allocation and the cheaper prices and Bihar corn, everything goes, and once the lean season starts happening from July, August, September, probably we could start seeing the domestic balance sheet tightening. And at that point of time, the question is, where is the corn going to come? Ukraine doesn't have corn at least till this year, and and Myanmar with the short crop might not be able to service India the same way they did last year. I mean, so that is something that we have to keep in mind, and that could have implications on the corn prices, and especially, like you said, corn prices could bounce back after once the peak supply season is over. And so that is my feeling at this point of time.
Very nice, very interesting. Puts a very bullish scenario on the corn. So, do you subscribe to this view about the corn prices?
Hello. In India, the interesting part is everybody wants to listen. सबको अच्छा लगता है कि हम बोले तेजी है, because India is a flat price market, and we have more consumer on stage, and they will never like to hear that. Okay? But let's only approach it from a very rational and optimal point of view. Tell me, what is the cheapest grain today in India? Anybody wants to raise their hand? सबसे सस्ता भाव किस चीज का है? Maize. Maize today is the cheapest grain. And we have learned right from our childhood, do you sell the cheapest grain? You don't sell the cheapest grain, right? You buy it. So, at no point in time, looking at Indian S&D or global S&D, maize is bearish. It is not. Question is how bullish it is, because now I have to balance it. Otherwise, people will not do business with us. Right? So,
my only submission will be with this audience, and that's how I always say, you should be honest with your views. Doesn't matter whether somebody likes it or not. Please be very honest and upfront, so that everybody comes with a lot of hopes to hear the right view, and you're the expert in the field. So be brutal as far as your view is concerned. Don't bother about somebody likes it or somebody doesn't like it.
So let's cover 5 points around it. Why? Okay, because why is more important than how. So number 1, it's the cheapest grain. Maize is the cheapest grain available at this point. Number 2, all the rice bogeys out. We know what it has done and what it can do. Number 3, US planting weather, entire volatility still needs to be priced in. Number 4, ruble appreciation is making grains expensive worldwide. And number 5, Myanmar has no maize and Ukraine has no maize to supply to India. So the entire S&D is a local S&D. There is no government stock. Only supply pocket is Bihar and UP. 7.4 million tons of maize needs to be processed in distillery in next 6 months. which is more than the production of Bihar and UP put together.
Very interesting. Let me hear the price view from a consumer as well. Kapil, please.
As a consumer, we have to consume. We were buying maize at 25 and a half, and today we're buying at 22 and a half as well. But interesting is, actually the S&D. Eventually, everything boils down to S&D. How you are looking at the numbers, and eventually, if those S&D numbers are translating into the trades as well or not. And so far, we had a decent Kharif harvest, and that harvest plus the projected Rabi harvest is showing a decent availability of maize in the market, which is also reflecting in the price. Because ultimately, price is king. The price and the forward price curve always tells you what exactly is the view of the market. So, the prices, everybody is aware of the price, how the price curve is going forward, and I guess that is reflecting the sentiments of the market as well.
Thank you. So, my experience with maize is when I was young. So, so I traveled right from Patna to Dalgola, passing the areas of Khagaria, Katehar, Dalgola. And one of the key issues I found was that since Bihar does not have agriculture markets, selling maize for a farmer was a challenge. I have even seen that a farmer has been selling part of his 2-3 bags even to a petrol pump, and that was accumulated like that. So the problem is, whatever S&D might say, if the supply chain cannot store that maize, it obviously creates a heavy pressure. And in any commodity, the pricing is also a part of sentiment as well. So my question to Smith was, has the supply chain developed? Have the large players, including the trade houses, which is Indian or global, have come that they can take advantage of this trend that the prices in the crop will be lower, but later higher? Have they started? Have more players have started coming into this field?
Sir, a very important question. When we were kids in India, or especially in Bihar, the storage capacity, when you were young, I mean to say. Yeah. So at that point in time, the storage capacity in Bihar was around 500,000 tons. 5 lakh ton के आसपास. Now storage capacity in Bihar is 2.5 million tons. Total production in Bihar is 5 million tons. Why am I putting this number? This storage capacity ratio is more than storage capacity ratio of US crops or Brazilian crops. So the point I'm trying to say, Indian entrepreneurs respond in such a great way that today Bihar has one of the most structured supply chains in the country. Number two, since independence, maximum number of railway ministers have come from Bihar. What is the benefit of that? That every station is a rake point. So, maximum number of rake points within the shortest distance is in Bihar. Number three, maximum rail availability because of the coal plants, electricity plant because of the coal, is maximum availability of rake is in Bihar. So the logistics out of Bihar is fantastic. Number one. Number two, now let's come to the capacity of using that corn. 3 years back, there were only 7 rake buyers in this country who were buying rakes, and at that point in time, it was not the throughput which was the challenge, but challenge was the capacity of consumer to buy it. And that's where sellers always have to depend on the exporter, because exporter used to bring them an option of buyers. Today, there are 60 buyers. So, not only the back-end logistics, but front-end have become extremely efficient, and the benefit of this thing is directly going to the farmer.
Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And now my question to Sanjeev, and I don't want to, get Sanjeev into the current scenario, and because he is a futuristic person. My question to Sanjeev is that, he works for a company which is promoted by yoga and which is concerned with it. Our Prime Minister tried his level best to promote millets as the food. And I realized from Naga's presentation that Bajra and all is still selling below the MSP price. Has the trend not picked up? What is holding it back, and what do you see in future?
No, so both, in terms of the government's effort, when they declared 23 as the year of millets, so Prime Minister had, the government's overall arching thinking at that stage was twofold. One, that the millets are grown in perhaps among the most challenged sort of agroecology places, where the water deficit, the rainfall is not there, very hardy conditions are there for farmers to grow. And the other unique feature, of course, in the millets was that extremely nutritious crops. So this whole challenge of India being nutritionally deficient, that became a big driver for twin paths. So you could not only address the nutrition deficit, but you could also encourage the farmers to grow that, and it acquires the centrality of sort of position where the demand momentum gets generated through the support that the government provides, and the farmers tend to get benefited, which otherwise they were not being there. So the result of that was that it spurred a overall sort of economic growth, which started to happen. A lot of startups started that time. Large companies like ITC, our own company, Patanjali, including all the food companies, Britannia, you name it. Every company worth its salt started work on the millets as a core ingredient in terms of launching new products. And yesterday in my talk I mentioned also that a lot of 5 stars, for example, had a lot of products around that. So long background to it, Ravi, but in terms of, so what it has done. So the year before, I sort of gave a keynote address at a very large sort of merit-based conference at ICA. And they had an exhibition. There were nothing less than some 250 odd companies which had put up their stalls and exhibitions and all that, with the new products and innovations what they had. The price of millets in that year, the biggest complaint they had was that there was a shortage of millets. They were not able to lay hands on that. Second complaint they had was that the businesses were becoming unviable because the prices were too high. And there was a supply shortage, and the production was not able to keep pace with that. And because of which their request was for the government to provide support to the to the startups or whatever, that how do they buy at some price differentials where they were able to get it cheaper. Now some bit of enthusiasm post that has generally tended to taper off. But what it has done is, and this is where the policy plays such a critical role in the market making, or spurring industries to react and go forward. So what does policy do? Policy does that, okay, fine, this intent what we define, and puts resources behind it, puts advocacy events behind it, puts the might of the government through Prime Minister and the cabinet, etc., to start to make that change. And you find certainly that that becomes a catalyst which drives the industry to grow. So I would say that not all is lost, that momentum may have tapered off a little. But in general, the amount of products that we made, we find on the shop shelves, which are made out of millets as a core. The amount of domestic consumption in all our homes, we are trying to gradually move away from wheat as a core form of protein to much more in terms of our own chapatis and all that made out of jawar and bajra and mixed cereals. So I feel that this will not go waste. It may be tapered off a little, maybe it is not getting discussed as much, but this is something here to stay. There's a huge amount of work which is going on in terms of this whole sort of nutrition as an angle and demand. So a lot of projects and CSR funding is coming in. A lot of government support has gone in. So my feeling is that millets in the long run are going to certainly be there. They will not only be there, they will grow as well. And I think the industry, the government must continue that part.
I want to take 2 minutes on this maize discussion which was there, and just to my 2 bits. While I'm not an expert on corn anymore, I can't claim that. But you know, the SND, that's a unique part in the commodity player. That it's not the overall SND what has changed. It's truly the delta of last 5%, which defines the 5% shift in lesser production or more production will define 20 and 30% move in the commodity prices. So, and that runs across all, you know, whether it's, so really that what we have to watch out in terms of the production, to the point which everyone in some form or the other mentioned, that, you know, with 3 core sort of demand industries, you know, ethanol, starch and feed, and direct consumption, if there's any marginal shift also, and if the, you know, whether the production side, even though progressively, I was just checking a couple in terms of how the production has been moving in the last 2 years, it's consistently moving up, but really for a 20% rally to trigger, you don't need a 20% change in the SND. It's just 2% and 5% change. Any sort of, you know, proportionality going out of proportion in terms of the timing and arrival and storage, very marginal trigger is going to drive a change which otherwise, in normal mathematical terms of SND, what Nagaraj will put there, will not happen. And that is what the element of sentiment, element of speculation, element of trading dynamism with the industry has. This cuts across all the agriculture products. So whether it's the oilseeds or grains or sugar or otherwise or petroleum or, you know, other any core chemicals. And I think this part we should be very mindful of. So it is not really the ultimate change of, you know, whether it go 5 million tons or not, you know, million tons of shift at the right time or at a time when it ought not to happen can trigger a kind of a change which will surprise all of us. So in general, like with some discussion going on in our company on the maize side, I generally am pretty friendly on the prices. I believe that, you know, the demand from the industries is there. I think while the production will improve, but if very marginal shift has to happen for this price to movement to rapidly sort of move up to a level which might surprise us.
Thank you, Sanjeev. And I fully agree, particularly in the times when the stocks are minimal, a 5% shift is a lot of shift to move the prices up or down, definitely. Now, I would like, so Sanjeev made a very interesting point. He made interesting point one, that millet is progressing in demand. Second point he made is that the complaint from the challenge which the FMCG companies are facing, that they are finding millet's prices very high. And whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, I was showing that the millets are, your presentation was showing that millets prices are cheaper than even the MSP, particularly bajra. So what are your comments on this?
Yeah. I think basically in terms of the overall strategic outcome, the Kharif maize yield is lower, so the millets acreage should eventually go up. Okay. So government should probably try to bring the more millets production at the cost of maize. And while maize supply is tight, but demand is also kind of, you know, it's a price elastic demand. You don't, because the ethanol demand, you don't have to do 12 million tons. You can do 10 million tons also, because the other feedstocks are there, whether it is sugar or rice. So overall, I think maize prices will be controlled from 22 to 28 rupees, and millets production should be encouraged, and starch industry also should be given some export incentives to compete with China. I think these are the points which I would like to make.
Very interesting. No, part of my observation was that, which I was informally discussing with Sanjeev, you know, when you look at the bulk bajra price or maize price, it appears to be cheaper than MSP. But when it comes to the shelf for selling, all millets are much higher than the wheat prices. And that's where the challenge is. Because most of the millets which we are producing, the quality at the farm is not such that it can be consumed directly. So a lot of grading, a lot of, you know, the quality improvement needs to be done, which makes the prices higher. And so that's something. Kapil, I will come back to you.
Just one point to add, the feed grade millets will slowly start reducing in terms of the production, and more food grade millets will be taking their place.
Kapil, this is something for you. You know, generally the view is emerging is that Sanjeev says that even 5% of shift in the production can lead to massive volatility in prices. Then you have Sumit who is saying that, the supply chain of India are as 2.5 million tons to the 68 buyers. Then you have blockade. So in this scenario, when your ethanol prices are capped and you have to sell ethanol year in advance, how do you do your risk management?
We go to government. And tell them it's not viable. So, I mean, jokes apart, you have to strategize the purchases. You have to, again, looking at the S&D, looking at, how the price are, how the sentiments are, the direction is, we try to mitigate the risk by inventory management to start with. And of course, look for the alternate sources, with when the rice exports got allowed, the broken rice availability in the market increased, which helped us as an alternate to maize. And then, of course, with a momentum built in where, FCI had to offload a part of their inventory for ethanol, we considered that as an alternate to maize, and we had a position where that supplies are assured by government for next 6 months. So that's how at least for this year, we try to maintain our feedstock requirements for the ethanol.
So I'll give you a kind of leading questions. I remember when I was in soybean industry, so that time if you look at the crushing parity, if you look at it, it's all the time negative. The strategic stocking in which you buy during the season when the prices are lower and crush it for 5-6 months, and you will get a little bit margin. Is the distilleries are also following that model that during the season you buy from dealers for 5-6 months?
I really hope so to do that, because the maize production is not equally distributed across the year. You have Kharif, which takes care of 75% of the crop, and then Rabi is 25% of the crop. Whereas the demand of ethanol is actually exactly opposite, or you can say, the first H1 of ethanol is 40% and H2 is 60% in terms of maize demand or the grain demand. So yeah, you have to play around with your inventory in a way where you can carry your inventories from Kharif into Rabi and further on.
Yeah, please.
See, traditionally it was 75-25 was the Kharif and Rabi, this one. But if you see 24-25 numbers, it is 55-45. Kharif output is 55% and 45% is this thing. So we're almost kind of reaching half and half. And if you do the weighted average yield, we are now almost touching 4 tons per hectare, or 3.8 tons per hectare, whereas US is 11.2 tons per hectare. So I think that strategic shift from Kharif to Rabi will happen more and more, and especially with summer crop also, like in Uttar Pradesh, summer crop also is doing 4.3 tons per hectare. So this, that anomaly is already at the move of, it's going away. It will be closer to 50-50, probably by 25-26.
Absolutely. So this is what I wanted to add. So what is now happening is from the 75-25 anomaly, now when the farmers are also realizing that the demand and the realization is good in Rabi crop, we are seeing a bigger Rabi crop in Maharashtra and MP. So there's that paradigm shift which is happening now, where this balancing between Kharif and Rabi is slowly coming into the whole maize ecosystem.
Very interesting. Particular question for Yannick, and since you are a large consumer of corn, probably the largest in India? No, among the largest in India. And the ethanol has more or less taken around 10 million to 13 million. Luckily, we got subsidized rice, but otherwise it would have been 13 million. What is your view about the trends of increase in production of corn? In which state will it happen and how will it happen? Let me give the question of yields or yield.
Sure, thanks. So, just to build upon the numbers that you said, so for starch industry, it took years to reach to a number of 5-6 million tons of consumption of corn. But when you look at ethanol, in 2 years they have reached a number of 10 million. So that is the kind of structural shift that we have seen, and I think that's where corn becomes such a hot commodity right now, that's where I think, just to follow up on your question, so that's where we need structural change in the production as well. And to a large extent, I would say we are seeing that directional change. Why so? We are seeing a significantly better Rabi crop in the regions which were historically not the hotbed for maize. I mean, say for example, we are seeing Rabi crop, a lot of Rabi crop in Karnataka as well. We are seeing a lot more in Maharashtra and the adjoining MP areas as well. Also, there is an increased intent, or I would say even the number says that the increased sowing in the northern India. I mean, whether it is UP, Punjab, and that side as well. So the trends are positive, and we are clearly seeing that in the production increase. Whether that number is 25%, 20%, I mean, it's all debatable. But there is a wave that in terms of areas of cultivation and as well as yield, and more contribution of Rabi into the overall SND would improve the average yield of crop, because we know Rabi, the average yield is going to be better than in Kharif. And as he's saying, now we are reaching a number of almost 50-50. So as we do that, the yield, the weighted average yield for throughout the year is going to increase. So I think it's going to be supporting on both the aspects, one area under cultivation and the yield as well.
So, COFCO will be the right people, tell about the global corn and supply and demand and probably the global price trend. Would you like to comment on that?
See, in general, I think we are, on a global basis, we are a friendly corn because see, the kind of numbers that we see at the seaport of 450 types, that has the potential to move up, at least for the current crop year. That is what we personally believe. Okay. Of course, the old crop is getting over. We are getting in the planting season for the new crop. It will all get weather dependent. US, there are a little bit of drought issues here and there. We have to keep a close track of how the new crop planting is going to happen. Of course, planting intentions are higher, but actually how that translates is something that need to be kept in watch. Bit of weather problems that we see in South America also for the second crop. We have to keep a track about how the Brazilian crop, especially the second part, is going to be there. On the Ukraine, we are coming from a pretty bad year. Again, it's going to be weather dependent from now onwards. But at least for the current crop year, rest of the current crop year, we are friendly. Of course, we will have to wait for the numbers that will come up on 31st of March, and for the what the Trump will do on 2nd of April. A lot of moving variables at this point of time, very volatile. But we are not too much bearish globally.
Thanks a lot. So since we have the consumers of corn, one starch, one distillery, and we are the intermediaries sitting here, particularly from the buyers of corn, since we will have a lot of people in this hall who are also into the trading and supply chain side of corn. What are your expectations? Because most of the players in the corn is small traders and medium-sized traders. What are your expectations from these traders to help you to build up your supply chain? What extra would you like them to do so that your supply chain is good and they also make money? And start with Sumit first.
this industry, maize industry, is right from farming, is a success story of India. If you see the acreage is around 14, 15 million hectares of agricultural spaces, Kharif and Rabi together, and an average 1.5 hectare, around 10 million farmers depend on this farming industry. Okay. Then there are sizable number of poultry farmers, traders, analysts, brokers, consumers who are dependent on this industry. It's an industry of technology because average yield in this industry has gone up from 2 tons to 3.5 tons. And that is where personally, if you ask, I foresee that overall this industry has created value for everyone. This industry has, maize is one of the commercial crops which is not only limited to one sector, but it has impact on food, fuel, food security, feed, every aspect of food supply chain. And specifically, I will give this an story again, that maize in most of the South American and US culture is equated to wealth. So if you start constructing home, you will first put few grains of maize. Because wherever there is maize, there is wealth. And we believe in India, we are only using 1/10 of levels of maize per capita that US or China or many compared in countries use. So we are just touching the tip of the iceberg. I believe maize cultivation is here to grow, maize industry is here to grow. Role of all the participants is only going to become bigger. And I believe this is the golden age of maize, which is just starting.
So my expectations, especially from the distilleries, actually more than the support system, is that we have seen in sugar how interacting with the farmers, working together with the farmers, it has helped grow the sugarcane ecosystem very efficiently, and which has brought actually a lot of prosperity for the farmers in the nearby regions. Something similar structure has to be there from, an effort should be there from the distilleries as well, where they are collaborating with farmers in the nearby areas and ensuring that the right practices goes into the field so that they have adequate availability of maize in the nearby areas, and which also ensures a continuity and a regular discussion between a distiller and a farmer, that what exactly is the requirement, what new technologies can be put in, which enhances the yields, enhances the crop quality, which enhances the overall availability of maize in the system, and which actually will bring a lot of prosperity, because ethanol demand is something which if we believe in the India story, if we believe that Indian GDP is going to, we're going to hit $10 trillion some point of time, the biggest consumption factor will be fuel, and fuel growth is the biggest bullish factor. In proportion, ethanol consumption is also going to increase simultaneously, for which we'll need more. We can't go for imports. The whole idea of ethanol is our indigenous consumption ecosystem. So for that, we have to continuously and collaboratively work between the industry and farmers to ensure we are, matching up with the demand.
Thanks. Yeah, and definitely yes.
So, India is very different when we come to the ag economy if we compare that to the US. The agriculture system in the US reflects like an industry. In India, it looks like a trade, and it's across the board because the entry barriers are limited and few and far. And this is across the board in general, barring a few sectors which is difficult for entry and exit. In general, we are no industry, agriculture industry reflects an industry. It's just a trading mindset that is there. But my sense is that over the last 15 years, I'm seeing a gradual shift to, some bit of consolidation, organization, where capital is playing an important role, infrastructure is playing an important role, risk management is becoming increasingly, more critical element in how it is managed. And likewise, whether it's the science, whether it's sales and marketing, I think that early signs of that consolidation is happening. So where, the approach, my only advice, unsolicited to a lot of players, whether they're small or large, is only that, this used to be our favorite in Kali, the value-based selling. I think the approach of, being a partner of choice where supply chain is concerned by bringing in various elements, whether in terms of the supplying of the right quality at a time when it is wanted, at a price, that commitment, managed, the financials sort of managed well, that, more mainstreaming, etc. And likewise in terms of whatever, identity preservation, quality, whole lot of things. So it is no more just a classical thing of buying and selling, but really I would exhort every player that approach has to become a lot more organized, a lot more structured. And if you provide that value to the buyer, I'm sure a lot of buyers are sitting here and their desire to, even if it's at the same price, but they'd rather go to a supplier who's giving all these elements to buy at the same price. But I would also even suggest that they would be willing to pay a marginal premium as well if they were able to get it from a very structured player. And I think that is the approach everyone has to follow if they want to build up a business that is sustainable of a large scale and will last out the test of time.
Thanks, Sandeep. So I think the message is clear that all supply chain managers, we call them traders today, have to value add to get have to do value addition to get a better share of the market and build up the trust with the buyers. So I'll make the question more specific for you. What is the value which you would like that the trader should add while supplying to you? So one quick answer and then